Okay, yeah, I know. We're not the United. We have a different constitution in the United States. However, it's not all that different when you go to our lawful constitution, the 1900 constitution. The other two are just bumpkin. The 1901 constitution would be relevant if it was enacted at Federation, but it wasn't. The 1973 constitution is just an absolute act of fraud, treason, treachery, usurpation and subversion. And people should be at least imprisoned for that. I'd like to think we're probably a little bit more evolved than hanging people publicly like Ricardo Bosi would like to do. Yeah, I don't think we have that right at all. Unless it's cost lives. Yeah. I think you need to tread very carefully, Donald Trump. Like I said, this isn't America, but this is about the Second Amendment in the United States. Now, it explains it a little bit better on the Tory Act. Now, the Tory Act does come from British Westminster. Okay, House of Lords, Westminster law. It's where the whole Tories thing comes from. A little bit more related than you think. You think? Yeah, I think. Why? Because we are a colony of the British Commonwealth. Now, I know, like I said, we don't have a Second Amendment Act. And for that, what's his name? Jim Jeffries, the comedian, who seems to think that he has an opinion on American law. You know, the Australian fucking idiot. It's just an amendment. You can unamend it. Okay. Jim Jeffries, stand-up comedian and all-round gronk. Let's just say that about their First Amendment too, shall we? For the right to freedom of speech. Yeah, I didn't think you'd like that one. Because then you wouldn't be able to get to say whatever you like about the Second Amendment. See how that works? Just being a realist here. This, okay, why am I going to show you this? Hopefully to wake up a little bit and hopefully to inspire you to realise that we have a system that's been designed for us to use against ourselves. We can't even if we had a Second Amendment, everyone's gave everything up. Even if they had one brought in now, who's all going to run out tomorrow? Okay, I'll bring you back down. I'll bring you back down. Well, no, I love me Periscope. Oh, geez, that sounded better in my head than it did out loud. Anyway, Periscope or tent pole? Oh, even worse. It's hopefully to inspire some people to think a little bit critically. Because that's what a lot of my stuff is about. Think critically, find patterns, look for things that are relevant, look for things that matter, look for things that are actionable and inactionable. Just look with your own discerning mind. Use your mind's eye. Use your mind's eye. Okay? Haven't heard that terminology for a while, have you? In my mind's eye, I can see. Which means you're thinking critically and you can see the wood for the trees. Alright? It's critical thinking that makes you realise that the definition and the relevance of one in the hand is worth two in the bush. You know, one in your finger is worth two up your nose. Right. I want to try to get you to think critically on these things. I want you to try to realise that, like, because we don't have the amendments or the abilities that they have, it doesn't mean that we as human beings, as people, as men and women of God, or if you don't believe that, fine, you still have rights. Not privileges that governments can take away. No. No, God, no. You have the right to disagree with me just as much as I have the right to disagree with you, so long as we don't tread on each other. Hence, don't tread on me. Okay? See what that actually means? Don't tread on me. Doesn't mean I'm coming after you with a rattlesnake. Or, you know. It means you don't tread on each other's personal rights, but tread on each other's or anyone's sovereignty or anyone's rights. Don't tread on me, I won't tread on you. We can agree to disagree. That's actionable law. That's workable. That's social cohesion. Right? Even if I don't agree with your politics or whatever, there are certain unalienable, not unalienable. It's got nothing to do with aliens. It's unalienable rights, liberties, and freedoms that just cannot be traded away. Because once you do that, hello, look where we are. Trying to get them back. At least some people are trying. Some people have been trying for a long, long time on rights that doesn't even affect them. It's it doesn't bother me none, so why should I care? You're the problem, okay? You're one of the biggest parts of the problem. You're one of the pieces missing from the puzzle, one of the crucial pieces that makes the puzzle hang together, you know? You'd rather keep the puzzle apart. Why? It doesn't bother me. Selfish much? Red. Money. Stop sitting on your leg, Dave. You know you can't sit on it because it hurts. Hurts, man. Breathe. Oh, lovely. I'm baking bread. Oh, lovely. Cool. Why? Oh, look. It's just a news. I can cook and bake a lot of things, including my legs apparently, which are healing well. You haven't seen them, have you? They're still a bit out there, but... Oh, excuse me. That was my knee, honest. Looks worse on camera. I suppose it's not great. Coming up to nearly 2 months now since I did that. Yeah, I know, dumb cunt moment. Oops, sorry Lily, I promised not to say that word. I'm trying to get my daughter to stop saying the C word, and I promised I'd stop. I think I need to get a swear jar. A real one, Bosie, a real swear jar. Right, where was we? I'm trying to help you to think critically. I'm trying to help you to unlock something up there. To unlock the go along to get along chain. You're chained up with it. You're locked up with this go along to get along thing. It's actually there. It's called your pineal gland or pineal gland. Okay, it's a thing. And it's calcified. Bad diets, bad... Okay, another topic. But if I can get you to unlock it and start using your discernment, your critical thought connected to your conscience, your conscientious thought, it's... Okay? To stop thinking with your... Well, not to stop thinking with your brain. You've got to use your brain, of course. But your brain and your mind... Most people are not using their mind, their critical mind. They're not thinking with their mind's eye. They're just calculating with their brain. And that's it. If I can help you to unlock that, you will start to see where... Like that stupid big protest. Massive, whopping big protests. Why? Why? You cannot petition the government with please, wishes and thank yous when the system is... it's benefiting them no matter what. And reversing that is going to be their undoing. They're not going to reverse things that are going to be their undoing, are they? So you can beg, protest and shout and fight with one another all you like. You're not going to accomplish anything that way other than go further down this road of the totalitarian tiptoe and the mission creep. I'm trying to get you to come to that realisation that they are the problem entirely. And you are enabling that problem by engaging with it. Okay? The more you fight it, the more they're justified in their mind and in other people's mind who see you as a problem and a rat bag because, like, you know, look, they're just ragtag, they're nuisances, they're pains in the arse. These are the people who are the go along to get along, it doesn't affect me yet people. And they're not going to be on the side of right ever. They're just not going to, okay? Not until it affects them personally. Like the people now who are hopping up and down, oh, they're taking their guns. Where was you in 1996? Believing the Port Arthur bullshit. Whether it was true or not. Do you think it's fair for blanket legislation, not law, blanket legislation to punish everyone in Australia because of the act of one questionable official story of one person, even if that was 100% fact proven and had everything on board, above board, and we could actually get the information for that from Freedom of Information, which we can't? Yeah, I heard that too, the sound of bullshit. It was loud and deafening, it was that quiet, wasn't it? So, without further ado, I think that's a long enough intro to explain the relevance of this to Australia. Well, there we go.
As we begin the new year, we have another historical anniversary that we just passed. And most Americans have never heard of the Tory Act of 1776. But we're living through its logic right now. Because this wasn't just...
Oh, look at that eagle. Hang on. Sorry guys, I know. While it's fresh in your mind. While it's fresh in your mind. There's one. Scottish Rite. Freemasonry. It's also a Roman eagle. Also a Roman. 3, 3, 3. Look at all them threes. 3, 3, 3. See all the threes? 3, 3, 3, 3. How many degrees? 33 to the plateau. The Alamy. Right. Okay. Al, come back up here. Here we go. The Roman Aquila, the Roman Aquila, a gilded eagle standard, was the legion's sacred soul. Its loss meant ruin. Its gleam inspired conquest. Its gleam inspired a conquest of 2,000-year-old icon of imperial power. It's just let that sink in for a minute. The Roman Aquila gilded eagle standard was the legion's sacred soul. Its loss meant ruin. Its gleam inspired conquest. A 2,000-year-old icon of imperial power. How long? How long? A 2,000-year-old icon of imperial power. What happened 2,000 years ago? Someone got nailed to a pole? Okay. But that's another. Not relevant.
Some dusty Revolutionary Era resolution. It was a blueprint, written in plain English, for how governments classify dissent and how quickly unity turns into control. It starts with a familiar claim. Some people are good, but
Hang on, got another one to show you. Sorry, I know. God, I'm sorry. Where is it? Have I still got it here? La 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 la. No, I don't. One for another time. Okay. Alright, without further ado.
Misled, and others are dangerous because they won't fall in line.
Back to the start.
As we begin the new year, we have another historical anniversary that we just passed, and most Americans have never heard of the Tory Act of 1776, but we're living through its logic right now. Because this wasn't just some dusty Revolutionary Era resolution. It was a blueprint, written in plain English, for how governments classify dissent and how quickly unity turns into control. It starts with a familiar claim. Some people are good, but misled, and others are dangerous because they won't fall in line. And once the government labels you dangerous, the next step is very predictable. Well, they disarm you. And today we're going to break down the Tory Act, what it said, what it authorized, and why it matters in 2026 America, where millions still believe in the Constitution, while others believe in a powerful central government that can redefine rights into privileges whenever it wants. And we're going to connect this directly to the Second Amendment because the founders understood something we're being trained to forget. The Second Amendment covers all bearable arms, not some, not the ones politicians approve of, all bearable arms, because the entire point is to keep power from concentrating in one place.
What if you can create your own website by saying, this is what I want? With Wix, you can.
Get off my TV too, you grub.
In 1776, America was not unified. There were people who believed that the colonies were already free by right, endowed by their creator, not granted by kings. And there were people who believed order required loyalty to a distant central authority. And that's not just a then story, that's an always story. Because the American argument has always been, do rights come from God or nature, and government is limited? Or do rights come from government, a government that is supreme? Now, the argument didn't end at Yorktown. It didn't end with the Constitution, and it sure as hell didn't end with the Bill of Rights. It's the same argument playing out today, here in 2026. The Tory Act, from 250 years ago, was published by order of the Continental Congress on January 2nd of 1776. And what makes it so interesting is the structure, because it lays out two categories of people. Category 1, the misinformed. And Congress says there are honest and well-meaning but uninformed people who were deceived by ministerial agents. And Congress recommends these people be treated with kindness and attention, and that the controversy should be explained to them, how petitions failed, how reconciliation was rejected, and how the colonies were driven to defend by arms their rights and liberties. Now, pause right there, because that rhetorical move still exists today. When people defend the Second Amendment, they're often told they're not evil, they're just uneducated. They don't understand the real meaning. They've been radicalized. They fell for propaganda. Now, that exact framing appears in the Tory Act. Some people are redeemable if they'll just accept the official narrative. And then there's category 2, the unworthy and dangerous. But then the act shifts. Congress describes unworthy Americans who sided with the oppressors, who allegedly misrepresented the Friends of Liberty, and opposed measures formed for preservation and security. And now we get to the part that should make every constitutionalist sit up straight. Because they recommended a remedy that wasn't debate. It wasn't counter-speech. It wasn't leave them alone. It was this: they ought to be disarmed. And the more dangerous among them should be kept in safe custody or forced to post sureties for good behavior. That's not just social pressure, that's state power used against political dissenters. And here's why this matters. This is an early American example of something governments do over and over again. First, they define a political group as a threat. Then they call the threat public safety. They restrict their arms. They justify it as necessary and label resistance as extremism. The Tory Act shows us the ancient truth. When a government believes it may be opposed, it wants the opposition disarmed. Now, that's not a uniquely British idea, that's a power idea. And the founding generation understood that. And James Madison, writing in Federalist 46, contrasted America with Europe and pointed out that the advantage of being armed possessed by Americans and that governments elsewhere were afraid to trust the people with arms. Now, Madison's point is brutal and simple. Armed citizens change the political math. And that is exactly why the Second Amendment exists as a structural check, like separation of powers, federalism, and free speech. It's not there to make you feel good. It's there to keep government honest. And one of the most abused talking points in modern gun control is the idea that the Second Amendment protects some government-controlled militia, and therefore the people can be restricted. But founding-era Americans repeatedly described the militia as a body of the people. George Mason asked, "Who are the militia?" and answered, "They consist now of the whole people, except a few public officers." And this matters because it collapses the modern trick. If the militia is the people, then the right of the people is not limited to a state-run club. It is the people themselves, armed, capable, and not dependent on the government for permission. Now let's bring it home to the phrase you specifically want emphasized here if you're watching here. The Second Amendment covers all bearable arms. If an arm can be borne, carried, by an individual, it is within the category of arms. This is not a fringe view. It's the logical meaning of the word arms in the founding era. Tools that can be carried for defense, duty, and resistance to force. And founding era writers speak about arms as the implements of the soldier, not merely hunting tools. Tench Cox, writing in the context of the ratification debates, argued that Congress had no power to disarm the militia, describing their swords and every other terrible implement of the soldier as a birthright of an American. And that line is devastating to modern gun control ideology because it rejects the entire premise that military-style arms are outside of protection. If the purpose is to keep power from monopolizing force, then, of course, the people's arms cannot be limited to politically acceptable tools. And Thomas Jefferson, drafting proposed language for Virginia, wrote, "No free man shall be debarred the use of arms." So when I say all bearable arms, I'm saying the category is broad by design, because the founders intended the people to remain capable.
Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. We're going to work through my workflow on building your own fitness channel. So I have a fitness.
The Tory Act didn't just recommend disarmament. It also authorized colonial committees, conventions, and councils of safety to call in continental troops to execute these measures. And this is where you should hear modern echoes, because the moment political categories become security categories, the state starts treating dissent as a problem to be managed, often with force. And in the Tory Act, those troops were directed to assist local bodies and even placed under their direction while carrying out these actions. Now, this is one reason that the founders later obsessed over checks and balances. They feared power concentrating and feared the use of armed force as a political tool. And one of the most striking parts of the Tory Act is its warning about retaliation. Congress describes British barbarity, which is burning towns, stirring insurrections, even brutality against prisoners, and acknowledges it could provoke Americans to retaliate. But then it cautions Americans. They said humanity ought to distinguish the brave. Cruelty should find no admission among free people. That is a founding era principle worth repeating today. A free people do not become what they resist. The right to keep and bear arms is not a license for cruelty. It's a check against tyranny and a safeguard for liberty. Now, let's connect the dots to the world we live in today in 2026. Americans are split in a way that should look eerily familiar. America, one, constitutionalists. People who believe rights pre-exist government, that the Constitution limits power, that the Bill of Rights is a line in the sand that the state may not cross. Then there's America, two, central power advocates, people who believe that the Constitution is living and flexible and that government must have expanding authority to manage modern life. And that second group tends to see the Bill of Rights not as a barrier, but as a set of obstacles. So what happens? The same rhetorical pattern from 1776 returns. First, you're called misinformed, then you're called dangerous, then the system moves to restrict your ability to resist. Remember, under the Biden Department of Justice, we were all called, all kinds of groups that were extremist because we believed in freedom, or we had a St. Michael, insignia, or we had We the People. I don't know, where do you see that? But yes, they did that. They labeled us as dangerous, and they wanted to restrict the ability to resist. And yes, it starts with arms, because arms are the last barrier against force. Alexander Hamilton in Federalist 28 warned about usurpation and described what happens when people lack organized local means of defense. He said, "The citizens must rush tumultuously to arms, except in their courage and despair." Now, Hamilton's point is about structure. Local power matters, decentralization matters, and the people's capacity absolutely matters. Because when power centralizes, it becomes harder to correct peacefully, and the cost of resistance rises. This is exactly why the founders built a system where power is divided and checked, and why the Second Amendment exists as part of that architecture. During the ratification debates, one recurring idea is that liberty depends on an armed populace. A widely cited statement in the federal farmer writings argues that to preserve liberty, it is essential that the whole body of the people always possess arms and be taught how to use them, especially when young. This isn't gun culture, it's constitutional culture. It's the belief that the power must never monopolize force. And here's what makes the Tory Act so valuable as a historical mirror, which is why I'm bringing this to you, because many of you probably have never even heard of it. The Tory Act shows how quickly political disagreement becomes a security issue. It starts with let's educate the misinformed, then becomes let's restrain the unworthy, then it ends with disarm them, detain them, bind them over for good behavior, and call in troops if needed. Kind of sounds like the ATF. Now that arc is the arc of centralization. And it's the same arc that we see in modern politics when bureaucracies claim emergency powers. Remember COVID? Or when courts are asked to balance away rights, like they were doing before the Bruin decision. And administrative agencies rewrite the meaning of constitutional guarantees throughout regulation. How many years did we report on ATF doing that? Now, if you believe in a limited government, you've watched this movie before. The Tory Act of 1776 is not merely an artifact. It's a warning label. It reminds us that even revolutionaries, people fighting tyranny, can justify disarmament and detention when they believe that the cause requires it. So what is the safeguard? Not good intentions, not promises, not slogans. The safeguard is structure, a constitution that limits power and a Bill of Rights that declares certain lines may not be crossed. And among those lines is the right that ensures the people remain capable of protecting all the others. The right to keep and bear arms, covering all bearable arms, because liberty requires the people to remain capable. The divide we're living through now is not new. It's the same divide America was born into. The question isn't whether power wants more power. It always does. The question is whether the people remember who they are and what rights actually mean. Because once rights become permissions, you don't have rights anymore. Guys and gals, I hope this hit home for you. Let me know if this is the first time you've ever heard of the Tory Act. Hopefully this sparked your interest to read the Tory Act. I'll pin it down below. And I hope you enjoy this historical playlist I have put together. There's a few other. I'll pin the playlist down below. But there's a lot of work that goes into these, so I hope that you would do me a favor by liking them, sharing them throughout your different groups and other posts. Subscribe to the channel. Make a comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. But most importantly, I hope this sparks the flame of liberty deep within you to read the founding documents again, all of them. The Federalist Papers, the Anti-Federalist Papers, the Tory Act, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, all the things that will help us be a stronger nation. Let me know what you think down below. I appreciate y'all. Have a great day. Stay armed. Stay free. I love y'all. Take care.
Put together a fairly good presentation, hasn't he, really? Now, what do I agree with that? Almost all of it. Almost. What don't I agree with? The fact that what it is, what it boils down to, is it's limited to protecting a system that's not necessarily genuine or authentic in its impression that it has on other sovereign nations. It tends to think that it can be the boss of the world. That's what I really do not like about the United States. It wants to be the boss of the world, and it wants to force its democracy on other sovereign nations, which is not exactly very democratic, is it? Let's be honest. That's pillage and plunder by another name. Let's be honest. It's unlawful. It's unlawful. It's anti-sovereign occupation and coup d'etat by another name. That's all it is. Why? Because it's always about international and economic and military hegemony. Purchase, leverage. Oh yeah, who'd have thunk purchase actually meant something else than what you thought? You can make a purchase, which means that now you have the goods. Thought of that, did you? Now you're going to purchase that with an agreed upon exchange of value or a crowbar. When you get purchase on it, you have leverage. Once you own all the goods, you have all the leverage. Yes, we're starting to learn some English literature derivatives. Literacy derivatives. Yes, not economic. Wow, is it economic derivatives? Okay, too deep for you. That's a whole other lesson. But, which is why I think, and especially here in Australia, now that we don't even have the means to do bugger all, what are we going to do? There's no point grabbing our torches and pitchforks because they'll ban torches and pitchforks. We'll end up with pitchfork bins and torch buckets everywhere. Put your torch in a bucket and your pitchfork in the disposal fucking skip bin. And we'll have nothing to bale our hay. So take our pitchforks, then we'll be forked. Oh, bad pun. But I hope that that gives you a bit of encouragement to sort of think a bit more logically, more cryptically. More strategically. Absolutely more strategically. By thinking more strategically, you'll eventually come to the realisation of what I've been saying for ages, and what even Shahid Balsan says for us as a Muslim in an Arab country. He's an Arab, a Sharia. Practicing Islam. Muslim. He's a Muslim man in an Arab country under Sharia law. I don't even like to call myself a Christian. I walk in Christ, yeah. Don't worry, I'm not converting to Islam. They got some things I don't like. They definitely got some things I don't like. But I also definitely am convinced, not just believe, I'm convinced that what we've got running around in our country isn't that. It's not. What we've got running around all over the Western world causing a ruckus, they're just radicalised people that have been indoctrinated and poorly educated. Reading an English version of the Quran. It's probably not translated properly. That's not. There's no way that's translated properly. Go on to any good scriptural Bible studies channel here on YouTube that explains Genesis and its Hebrew meaning. The entirety of Genesis in Hebrew can fit in the palm of your hand. It's insane. It's a crazy language. Especially when you mix it up between Hebrew and Aramaic. So little says so much. That's why they thought very carefully about whatever they wrote or said. It is very easily to say the wrong thing. Well, not the wrong thing, but very easily to be misinterpreted by saying too much. Like we do now, we start getting into floundering word salad. Like, I'm going to, if I don't stop this video now. Love yous all. God bless yous. Good night. I'm going to bed shortly.